Hello, very good morning to all of you. Since I presented my last paper probably on 22nd of August in Rishi Bankim Chandra College, Noihati, in collaboration with City College in Bangladesh, University of Nigeria, Africa, and others, I have been bombarded with questions in my WhatsApp, in email, in SMS, everywhere. And some of the questions I tried to answer in the question answer session of that webinar itself, but because of the paucity of time management of the authorities of the webinar organizing committee and college, I couldn't answer all of them. But the scholars, the students, the colleagues, the professors, and the other academicians and intellectual enthusiasts, they are not letting up. They are not absolutely relenting at all since my paper presentation in RBC College Noihati on 22nd of August on hashtag Black Queer Lives Matter. Yes, I kept my title as hashtag Black Queer Lives Matter, from child to pride. This is how I had entitled my talk in RBC College Noihati on 22nd August 2020. Now, I have chosen to answer some of the questions via my YouTube shoot in my own YouTube channel, so that it reaches out to those enthusiasts, those academicians, those research scholars, and UG students and PG students and others who were wanting to ask me, so many of them, during the international webinar on African culture, literature and literature on 22nd and 23rd of August. Now these are the questions that I have through a meticulous permutation and combination and decided, not through meticulous permutation combination, almost I have randomly decided, but I had to be careful in not repeating to answer the same question twice. So there you go. And I hope it pacifies you for the time being. So this is the first question that they wanted me to answer. What is toxic femininity? Now we talk about toxic masculinity a lot, but we do not realize that if there is toxic masculinity in Kabir Singh, there can be toxic femininity in Mardani, or in Ki and Ka, or in Mardani 2, or in movies like those. Those are labeled as feminist movies. Even Pink, for that matter. Why am I saying this? Because feminists need to decide whether they want to fight against men or masculinity or patriarchy. Because if they want to fight against men, God bless them. Even God can't. If they want to fight against masculinity, then there are trillions of layers of masculinities, because there is no single masculinity. There are thousands and thousands, billions and millions of masculinities simultaneously. So which masculinity are they trying to combat, and why? If they're fighting against patriarchy, Now, this part fascinates me as a queer theorist. If they are fighting against patriarchy, they have to understand that plenty of men, there are plenty of men who are also fighting against patriarchy. Now, patriarchy is a drug resistant, self mutating COVID 19. Now, if patriarchy is a virus like coronavirus, then we have to understand that it infects, like coronavirus infects poor, rich, celebrity, anonymous, black, white, western, eastern. Similarly, patriarchy infects men and women alike. If women think that patriarchy tortures them, I would request them to think again, because there are so many men who are also getting tortured, bullied, and embarrassed by patriarchy. And those men who are not hegemonic, maybe they are subordinate masculinity, they represent complicit masculinity, those men are also victims of patriarchy, like most women are or have always been. So instead of fighting against them, why not, in a strategic coalition politics, collaborate with those men who are also fighting against patriarchy? It will help in couple of ways. A, they would find friends. Feminists would find friends in those men who are victims of patriarchy like them. Number two, those men who are at the wrong receiving end of patriarchy, they would find friends in those feminists, and thereby feminism can be collapsed theoretically into queer theory, and queer theory can be critically read as a post-structuralist, deconstructionist feminist theory. So if I am a queer theorist, then I am also a feminist, but a post-structuralist feminist. So all feminism needs to do is to join hands with all the colors that we have. It can be lesbian, it can be gay, it can be bisexual, it can be transgender, it can be queer, and it can be intersectional, and plus plus plus. And by way of joining hands with all those peripheral sexual ontologies, feminism would be stronger, would be even more potent, and would be even more deconstructionist. So is queer theory feminist critical movement? I would say yes. Is feminism queer? I would say yes. But a queer theorist is also a post-structuralist feminist. Yes, queer theorist is also a post-structuralist feminist. Now, moving on to the next question. What is the difference between sex and gender? Or is there any difference between sex and gender? My humble answer is that there is a difference between sex and gender. And the difference is there is none. Because, for heaven's sake, I'm pleading you that sex is not biological, gender is only cultural. Get rid of it. Sex is as much cultural, social, and political as gender has always already been. So, if both sex and gender are culturally and socially constructed, then what's the difference between sex and gender? The difference between sex and gender is that there is no difference between sex and gender. Moving on to the next question. What is corpophobia? I use the term corpophobia. Corpophobia means it's a fear of your own body. Corpophobia means it's a fear of your own body. Now, it is the advent of Christianity that has taught us, and through the colonization and Christian colonization, to be phobic about our own body. And why? Because unless we are phobic about our own body, we won't deify and reify the body. And unless we do that, we won't be able to stabilize the body. And unless we stabilize the body, we won't be able to stabilize the sex. Because sex is biological, as you all keep telling in webinars and public talks. So many of you. Yes. And if sex is stabilized, then gender also can be stabilized. And if gender is stabilized, then sexuality can also be stabilized. So, if we do not combat the Christian fear of the body, that is corpophobia, then what happens? Then once we combat this phobia of the body, then body is destabilized. Then there is no stable sex either. And once the sex is stabilized, there is no stable gender either. And once the gender is destabilized, there is no desire or sexuality either. Because, as Judith Butler would say, to critique Simone de Beauvoir's second sex, one is not born a woman, one becomes a woman. Now, who are you to necessarily guarantee that one is necessarily female, which aporetically gets deconstructed that obviously female is not born a woman, female becomes a woman. I got you, Simone de Beauvoir, but where Judith Butler deconstructs feminism within the site of queer in a strategic coalition with queer feminism, that one is a gender neutral term, so one could also be male. What if one is male, then one is not born a woman but becomes a woman, which obviously we know means female is not born a woman but becomes a woman. But what if one is male, then line reads that male is not born a woman, male becomes a woman. So is woman a becoming? It is. Is woman a performance? It is. Then if woman is a verb, is a performance, is a becoming, not a being, then the identity of fixed sexed body is deontologized and destabilized and deconstructed. Thank you. And I promise you that all the mails that I have been receiving, all the texts that I have been receiving in terms of the questions and queries and observations on the basis of the paper that I had presented on the 22nd of August in Rishi Bankim Chandra College, New York. I promise you, I will answer all of them. So stay tuned, keep in touch, stay home, stay safe, stay healthy, and maybe we'll soon meet again with more observations, more analysis for your questions and your queries on the basis of my recent international webinar. Thank you.